Good morning. Me again. Don't run away, please, from the back. All right. I would like to welcome to this most cheering panel discussion and fruitful. Mauricio Vicoin, you know Mauricio, have just talked. Mr. Linwood Farr, CEO of Excel Security House, and Peng Xiao, CEO of G42. And I would like to start by a question to all of you. Can you please give us a brief overview of the background, of your background, and talk about the biggest challenge you see entrepreneurs facing in the era of digital transformation? We'll start with you, Mauricio.
Well, I think you know my background by now, so I will skip that. In terms of challenge, I created 18 companies in my life, and the challenge always seemed to be funding at the beginning. Doesn't matter if you're in Silicon Valley or in Jordan. But then as I think about it, funding always followed vision and followed courage in entrepreneurship. And so for those of you that want to pursue entrepreneurship, I would say find your voice, find your courage, and find your vision, because everything else will follow. But if you're starting a business without that, you're probably going to fail. And the other point I think you made earlier, which is don't start the business to make money. The money will follow if you're successful. But find the courage and the vision to change the world in some way, and the passion, and the rest will take care of itself.
Beautiful answer. I just said it's a beautiful answer. So can I have an applause, please, for Mauricio, not for me? Len? Oh, sorry. Linwood. Linwood, sir.
Let me see if we have a mic here.
Yeah.
Everybody okay? So thank you very much, Beyond Limits and Sci-Fi University. It's wonderful to be here in the country of Jordan. It's my first visit to Jordan. I want to tell you that I'm an old guy that started AI a long time ago. And I didn't really understand what it was I was working on. But we, in the US Navy, we had a problem with submarines that were failing, taking lives and history with them. And we started developing a system that was a parallel system to the operating system of the submarine. And in this fashion, we created our own AI in the US Navy for submarines. And since we started this program, we've not lost another submarine. When it comes to talking to you folks, you young folks, about AI and how you can become an entrepreneur, my suggestion to you, align yourself with somebody that is in the industry that you like. Could be your father, your grandfather, but align yourself with these people that you can talk to them about the practical side of what you're trying to accomplish with AI. And in this manner, you will get the complement of the age and history of development of the particular science or the particular entrepreneurial product that you want to make. And this will help you achieve and make a fabulous company. Thank you.
Thank you, Linwood. Peng, please.
Thank you so much for having me again on the stage. I introduced myself in the session yesterday. I'm from G42, based in Abu Dhabi, also in the region. As I mentioned previously, the company is focused on building AI capabilities for a wide range of different industries, both in the region and globally. I want to echo both of my colleagues here on their view for the challenges and opportunities for young people here in the audience today and around the globe who want to enter into the AI business, AI race. First, you gotta have passion. You have to find something you will love to do. It's not about AI itself. AI is an utility. Unless you want to do what I'm doing today or what Edge is doing today, which is build an AI technology company, the truth is that majority of the work you'll be doing will start in probably traditional industries. Believe it or not, only 4% of global industry today are using AI at all, 4%. So 96% is waiting for us to explore. So you gotta have the passion to find that area you would love to make a difference. That's number one. Number two, I echo your point, Linwood, which is find a partner. You need to have an industry expert to work with you. So for example, G42 has a large practice in the energy sector. We have over 130 AI scientists today building amazing AI theories. But until we met with a group of geologists at ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, over a year ago, we had no idea how this fabulous capability in AI, in theory, can be applied to change upstream, midstream, downstream business, the entire value chain of energy sector. So you have to find the right partner to bring that industry knowledge to combine with your capabilities and deliver solutions. So passion plus partnership.
Okay, I want to follow up on this quickly. Maurice, what do you advise entrepreneurs to, how they overcome this challenge? The challenge of finding courageous fund?
Well, I think my colleagues have hit on an important point. They described it as finding the right partner. I would slightly describe it differently. You have to understand the problem you're trying to solve. Maybe you have expertise in the industry and then you don't necessarily need the partner. But if you don't understand the problem, then you're not going to find a solution. And so really doing your homework on what problem are you trying to solve, and is the problem really one that requires the utilization of a technology like AI for its solution or not? Many problems in the world don't require a technology for solution. I think once the problem is defined, then you will also find in partners the source of funding.
Yeah, we've taken the approach that we're looking for very distinct product to put the AI into. Working with Beyond Limits, we're looking at putting an AI into a power plant that we're putting into Western Africa. This means that we're beginning from the start, the get-go, to apply AI to a technology that is very old and very unsubstantiated in terms of product and output and all the things that you need to control within a power plant. We're going to use AI to develop that technology. So when you set out as a goal, and in our case, Western Africa, we're trying to do two things. We're trying to give them a leg up on the natural resources that they have in their country, and to be able to turn those natural resources into product as opposed to shipping out raw material around the world and letting somebody else make the money. So this is my way and our company's way of trying to establish a footprint in a country, a Western African country, that is going to benefit from the AI, and at the same time make a lot of people happy, giving electricity to people that never thought they'd get it. So this is our way of trying to develop the AI.
Ping?
Thank you for the question. I think the key here for our young people here is not to do AI for the sake of AI. As I mentioned earlier, AI is a powerful, transformative new utility. AI should be put in the context of what your real passion is. What is that you actually want to accomplish? What change you actually want to make? I'll give you a couple examples in the context of G42. We make investments around the globe in AI-driven companies. We invest in India, in China, and all the way to Russia as well. In India, we recently invested in a small startup which focus on fashion retail. Fashion retail. So you think, how would AI be applied to fashion retail? Well, they found out today that more and more people, especially young people, are shopping online. And when they want to buy fashion online, it's hard to figure out if it fits you really well or not without being physically there. So they're using computer vision to basically allow you to take photo of yourself and combine it with this vast inventory online and give you a very realistic view of how something would fit you, including a virtual catwalk of yourself wearing something. Very innovative, using actually basic computer vision capabilities. Another example, in China, we invest in a company who does 3D printing, very advanced 3D printing, and they actually specialize now in dental 3D printing kits. And how would AI apply to that? Well, they found out that after processing 40,000 patients' data, a big part of the printing challenge is not the printing itself, it's actually find the right fit. How do you define the fit? So again, they apply computer vision with support of our funding to be able to actually use machine learning to better design the fit before they print. The efficiency was improved by over 50%. Again, very basic use case of AI.
Can you say that again, please?
The what?
Last bit. Can you say that again, please?
About the 3D printing? Yeah, so the efficiency was improved, printing a dental kit in China, in this small company, by over 50% using basic computer vision capability. And last example I'll give to you is an investment we made in Russia. It's a satellite imagery company. They've been in business for actually 20 years, doing traditional data provisioning for other companies, farmers, governments, and what have you. But we help them to apply, again, computer vision to their imagery collection. They went from a data provider now to intelligence service provider, upgrading their value, improving their margin. So these are not big companies who really already had a passion in a particular field, but very creative in applying AI capabilities to amplify their value proposition, to improve efficiency. So I view AI for young entrepreneurs as something that you don't need to be obsessed over it. You should be obsessed over the problem you want to solve and look at this portfolio of capabilities today that's available and go for the low-hanging fruits first. You'll be surprised how many things you can solve today with the most basic AI capabilities.
Thank you, Peng. Mauricio, how can AI be a force for good and to be responsible, socially responsible?
Well, if you make the assumption that the world is increasingly going to be a heterogeneous place, so you're going to have high expertise coexisting with low expertise, coexisting with no expertise, and you can change that across economic terms, wealthy people versus poor people. You could change it into economic activity, etc. But the point is, the world in the future is likely to be a place where all these things coexist. Then AI is a way to encapsulate the expertise that normally would be rationed only to the upper echelon for everyone. So I gave you examples earlier about medicine. You know, if you're sick today, you probably are going to try to find the best expert in the world in whatever you're sick. In the future, you might not need to be that because you'll have a piece of AI that captures the knowledge of all those best experts, and they are available in every clinic, in every place, in every part of the world. So I think it's a great force for democratization of access to expertise. And I think there are some implications that will come from that. But I think the reason why, as a sort of agent for social progress, we're very excited about AI is because of the sort of way of creating universal access to the expertise that is otherwise rationed.
Thank you. Linwood, in this era of AI and machines, and machine learning and stuff like this, what do you think is the most important asset for an entrepreneur?
I'd like to ask the audience for a question. How many are in the industrial side of their thinking on AI? How many on the medical side? Pretty close to even, I think. My feeling about AI is to get into the industrial side, which is my background in building submarines and airplanes for 35 years. You have to have a passion, much like Ping has said. You have to find that passion. You have to follow it. You have to explore it. And you've got to be able to come up with ideas that the older people that you're working with can understand that you're trying to help them and you're trying to lead them into a new idea, a new way of thinking. And this is the challenge for you young folks out there, to be able to take the AI concept, and it's a figurative way of saying you're going to make the world better, but you've got to find the way to get your product better, and the people that you're working with or the company that you're beginning, you have to get it into a real framework of good foundation, and to begin from the very beginning focusing on what you want to change. And it is change, because if we're not talking about AI, we're not talking about change. And it takes knowing how you're going to get there that is so important to making it work. I'd just like to add a quick note here so that maybe you guys can understand where I'm coming from. We have a case in this Western African country where there are over 2 million artisanal miners, got artificial in my mind, artisanal miners. And these people are the salt of the earth. They're the farmers that when the right season is there, they're out exploring for gold and trying to find gold instead of doing farming chores and that sort of thing. So we looked at that. I looked at it as if I were building an airplane, and I saw that every day a woman goes out with her husband and she stands there all day long, 10 hours a day, breaking the gravel that explodes the gold into a pot. And then the husband, who has given the gravel to her, he then processes that through a panning operation. So what I did when I saw this woman, and normally she has a baby on her back, standing there 10 hours a day with the baby shaking and not being able to know what's going on, I built a machine that runs off a solar panel, solar power, and there are 4 posts that are working all the time, 10 hours a day. And this has increased the time for the woman to go back to the village to work in a farming or taking care of the children properly, feeding them properly. And this is a give back that I'm doing in terms of supporting this West African country, because they need it. The government has recognized that by doing my process, it's going to create more wealth for 2 million people, and it's going to increase the overall value of the country, because this is the way that they can double income, double using my equipment, and at the same time feeding themselves properly and taking care of themselves properly. And Maurizio, that's a real, it's a contribution, I'm telling you. So this is a payback thing, as opposed to us building an 850 megawatt power plant using AI from Beyond Limits to support it. It's our payback to the country. And this concept can be used in any country that has these artisanal miners working for them. So that's my passion. Sorry to divert from AI, but this is important for all of you to know, that you have to give back. You really have to give back to what you're doing. Thank you.
Peng, I have my own question. What's G42? What's the sense of the 42? That's a branding. That's a branding, before I ask you the question.
That's the grand prize for this conference. If you can guess that, you win a fabulous prize. No, I'm just kidding. G stands for group. We are a holding company which operates a group of operating companies in different AI verticals. But 42 actually comes from the famous sci-fi book, classic, written by Adam Douglas in the US, I think in the 60s, The Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. It's a movie about this. There's one chapter in the book talking about when human society became sufficiently self-independent, we begin to ponder the meaning of life. We collect all the data available to the entire humanity. We put into a supercomputer. We begin to number crunch all this raw data to figure out the meaning of life. Years later, the answer came out. It's 42.
Just a note, please, you can ask questions now through the tablet, right? Okay. Through the app, sorry. I forgot there is an app. Just to follow on Peng, knowing this region, we are trying to entice people, young people, to really be entrepreneurs in AI. What do you think is the biggest misconception of entrepreneurs in this region? But don't talk about me, please, talk about others, okay?
Misconception of the entrepreneurs themselves, or?
Misconceptions about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think a great question. I think I touched on this already, which is I think a lot of people now are thinking about AI for the sake of AI. And it's like internet in many ways, where it's sitting in the background. It's a new platform, a new utility, a new power grid you need to harvest. Again, unless you really want to pursue AI science, some of us are doing that. The real opportunity today is to disrupt traditional industries with AI capabilities. There's so much of it is already available. So not to be too repetitive, find that one thing you love and match it with what's available today already in the AI ecosystem. Now, AGI will take a long time to realize. That would, in my opinion, be the real game changer for the entire society. But today, there are so many ANI capabilities, narrow intelligence capabilities, that you can apply to what you do. One more thing I want to add is that the real AGI race is happening at the national level. This is very important. I think it's important for our entrepreneurs to know as well. You need to encourage your government to form national programs with a national agenda to build a true AI research and development ecosystem. Entrepreneurs cannot just succeed by accessing AWS, launch a program, and find a partner, boom, it's done. No. They need the whole ecosystem from data availability, connectivity, computing power, regulation, so on and so forth, to really succeed. This is where I hope more governments will communicate with each other as well to learn from each other on a national AI model. I'll be happy to broker the conversation between UAE and the rest of the region, how we in the UAE developed a multi-year national AI framework, step by step, from regulation to cloud computing, to create this ecosystem. By the way, including the university I mentioned yesterday, we recently launched for the education layer in this framework, to really attract talent and build capabilities for the long term.
Thank you. We still have not received, we received questions. Okay.
Like 2-3 questions.
Sure.
2 to 3 questions, all right?
Oh my God. If I can read them, right? All right. Do you think that artificial intelligence should have some kind of feeling similar to human feelings to recognize emotions? I believe this is the question. All right, so
Well, I guess the question would be, for what problem? Right? So will we ever get to the point where machines can mimic human cognitive performance, which could include feelings? I'm sure. I'm pretty familiar with what's going on in the bowels of research, places like Microsoft Research, and I can tell you we're pretty close. We're pretty close to having a machine read a book. It actually understands the content as opposed to just having the semantic of the language. So the real question then becomes, this is just a tool. What are you going to do with the tool? And are there applications where recognizing feelings, for example in robotics, could be useful? Perhaps. I think that's for many of the people in this audience to go figure out.
Another question for, I guess you don't want technical questions about AI, right? Okay,
Well,
it's finding.
Seriously, I think for that question, you really need to talk to the robotic manufacturers to find out how they're doing about feeling.
Well, I've seen one lately, which is totally emotionless, right?
Yeah.
This shooting here and there and so on. But finding your passion keeps coming up as a necessary step to enter the AI market, okay? At what point would you say you're passionate about something? What triggers your passion? How could people uncover what triggers their passion? We're talking to young people.
It's a very good question for the young folks here. My passion came from working for a large corporation and falling into what became the first elements of AI in industry. All of that is based on the willingness of your education and the willingness of you as a person to explore. And if you don't have exploration in your spirit, you need to find somebody that will help you be more explorative. And all I can say from my position, really all of you young folks need to follow your dreams, follow your passion, make sure that you're not overreaching when you're trying to accomplish some of the goals that you're working on. But you're here today because you're interested. So that's a first start. And I really appreciate seeing all the young faces out there that we know one day you'll be a Bill Gates or somebody close to him, because what you do is going to create very good results for the world.
Great, thank you.
Let me just
Okay.
add to that real
So
quick,
please.
if you don't mind. I think I agree with your lingo completely. The fact you are here today shows that you already have that fire, right? We came on stage a bit late because we were taught a few buses were late coming here. You travel far distance early in the morning to come to this conference to learn more about AI, learn more about opportunities in your career, in your studies. That's the beginning of something amazing. I think, how do you know you're passionate about something if you don't want to sleep, you want to solve a problem? Well, that's passion. When you wake up in the morning, first thing you do is to reach out to your computer and work on a particular problem. That's passion. But I want to add one more thing, which is passion is not a constant. You may start with one thing, but wind up doing something totally different. And that's perfectly normal. In fact, I think that's what's amazing about following your passion. And things will shift, the subjects will shift. But that desire to make a difference remains. I think that is a key. If you wake up in the morning feeling just another boring day, I have nothing I want to do, That's a real problem.
Okay, question, this is the last question, unfortunately, because I love being a moderator, but not part of the panel. I hate that, I was there yesterday. The question, if everybody can chip in on that, is in your opinion, who will be responsible about artificial intelligence mistakes?
Well, I think that it opens up the whole question of ethics around AI systems, especially as you think about systems evolving to be thinking. In medicine, for example, we're grappling around the idea of a learning machine in the context of a regulatory environment that is discouraging evolution of a medical device. So these are deep issues. They're also potentially interesting problems for you all to work on. One of the things that I'm seeing is that the idea that a central government will somehow, or a group of governments, or the UN, or whomever you want to pick, will somehow create an overwhelmingly regulated environment where all these decisions are settled by some committee, that's very unlikely to happen. The situation is very dynamic, which means that ethics and good decisions in artificial intelligence, as artificial intelligence develops, is very much a democratic process, and it will be up to every one of you working in the field to make sure you're making ethical decisions. And to some extent, create a framework that filters out the mistakes. Remember, though, at the end of the line, it's data-driven statistics that you're mostly dealing with. So mistakes tend to be self-filtering in that infrastructure. And I think we're still pretty far from the idea of a machine that will make their own independent decisions and can go rogue, although we will probably get there, but we have some time to figure out that infrastructure.
I have to reflect on my industry, aircraft and submarines. And I look at the example of Boeing, who is in big trouble today because they should have had AI. They should have been able to understand that there were things going on in that company that could have prevented the 2 crashes that took the lives of so many people. When I look at it, I see FAA, the Federal Administration for Avionics. They were, I have a pesky fly here, sorry.
That's a warm welcome for you.
FAA is the overseer of aviation in the United States. And they are kind of the watchdog for the aviation companies. Boeing, because of their reputation, they got a pass. They became their own certifying agency. And when that happened, the overseeing of how they did their procedures and how they responded to artificial intelligence in these simulators, they ignored it. And now today, there are over 400 people lost their lives because of that. Boeing will pay a huge price. Their stock is going down. It's incredible. But had they employed AI as we know it today in their company, they would not be where they are today. So if you look at federal regulations, and we talked about this yesterday, the Federal Drug Administration in the United States is overseeing all the clinical trials. Not all, but most. If you're trying to get a drug approved, you got to go through them. Now, the question was, how do you apply AI to these clinical trials so that you can intermesh and find the results of all of these activities going on and the results that they're producing? Then comes the question of competition. Well, suddenly one competitor is getting it out from another one and learning what they're doing. So there's an ethics issue that we have to address in the AI side no matter which way it goes, whether it's private, public, or government, we have to form that ethics capability.
Thank you, Linwood. Thank you, Mauritius, and thank you, Peng. I'm sorry, I was ordered that this is the last question. Thank you very much, and please give a round of applause for our great guests. Thank you.